Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Warren. I'm a banker here in London and a property investor across the UK up north. My goal is to live free and independently from property, so I'm looking for an income of £3,000 per month from property. If that's what you're on to, like and subscribe. That is what my channel is all about. So guys, this is another big update video of everything that's been going on over the past month, guys. I'm going to start with what's been happening in Hull. In my last video, or my series of last videos, I brought you up to speed with my journey to investing in Hull and how I completed just before the end of last year, back end of November. Now, what's been going on since November in terms of getting a tenant in there and all the stuff that's come along the way with regard to getting the house ready to be lettable and habitable by the incoming tenants? I'm glad you asked. Let me take you on that journey. So, as I mentioned, I completed at the back end of November and my tenants moved in at the back end of January. So basically from completion, which is essentially me getting the keys and the buying process being over, through to getting a tenant in the door, signing the tenancy agreement and, you know, being there for the next 12 months. 2 months, guys. So I think that's really good work. So how did I get from completion to a tenant being in the house in 2 months? In what I think is a really good short space of time. It's taken longer with other properties. Not much longer, but it has taken longer. Let me take you through the steps. So first things first, guys, before I was at completion in November, from like September, October, I was researching letting agents in the area. Now, why was I doing that? To not waste any time. Exactly to achieve what I did achieve, getting a tenant into the house as soon as possible after completion. Now, that was just a standard Google search, and I've been through in other videos on how I conduct searches for letting agents. But basically, guys, in this day and age, use the internet to your advantage. When you're searching and when you're Googling for letting agents for your buy-to-let house, go by reviews. Google is really good at showing you reviews from other customers that have used a particular service or product. In this case, it's letting agents. So I like my letting agent, guys, to be literally around the corner from my property. So as you know, this property is in Hull. I don't even want a letting agent in Hull that's like far away. So, you know, 4 or 5 miles away. I want it within a mile of the property. Why? Because they're more likely to do more, to be more attentive to a property that's close to their office. People are human beings, guys. So I was looking around. I called around about at least 5 agents and I asked them to send me a breakdown of all of their fees and their rates for letting services. Put them into a spreadsheet and compared and contrasted and went with the one that was offering best value for money, but also the best service. And in terms of service, I'm measuring that by the rating. So they weren't necessarily the cheapest, but when you combine their rating and their fees and their costs, this was the one that I came out with, and I've been very happy with them so far, guys. I mean, they've been so attentive. You know, even before I completed, they were getting in touch, giving me breakdowns of, you know, what they could get in that particular street and that area of Hull. And then once I completed, they were in there like a shot. And they did really well to bring me back some tenants. And we're going to give you a breakdown of the options that they gave me after they'd interviewed a bunch of tenants. And I want to ask you, after I show you on screen, what tenant would you have gone for? But before that, let me talk about some costs. So it's inevitable, guys, and I really want to highlight this now. When you buy a buy-to-let property, and yep, you can do your survey, you can do your valuation, there's always going to be something in the house that needs to be fixed, basically, in order to have the property habitable and to a standard that a tenant would enjoy, to a standard that you would enjoy if you was living in the house. So let me run through what was discovered by my agent after I completed and handed over the keys. By the way, guys, I want to tell you just quickly, I went to this property once, okay? So I went and viewed it, and on that day I viewed lots of other properties. If you want to see the video on all of the properties that I, viewed on the day, check out this video here. But I've only seen it once, okay? I then got a survey done, and I haven't been back since. And that's the same for several of my other properties, just to give you an idea of how often I'm up and down there, okay? I really do place a reliance on my letting agents. So it's important to choose one you trust. Back to the cost. So they went into the property and they found an issue with the boiler. So basically the boiler was dripping. And when they did a bit more digging, they found out that there was a leak in the roof that needed fixing because the water was coming through the roof, down through the pipes, through the boiler and dripping into the house. So that needed to be repaired. That was £144. When you let out a property, you have to have a gas safety certificate, a valid one, and also electrical, it's an EICR. So it's basically a report on the condition of the electrics throughout the house. I'm sorry, don't know what it stands for. If you know, put it in the comments below. So gas safety certificate, £90. The electricity condition report was £200. Off the back of that report, there was some remedial work, stuff that needed to be fixed, updated, fuse boards that needed to be replaced. That was £204. Smoke alarms needed to be put in the house, £126. And in the interim, from completion through to getting a tenant in there, I had to pay council tax. You have to pay council tax even if the property is empty, which of course is, in my opinion, not fair, but that was £327. So altogether, guys, £1,091 to pay in order to get the property up to a standard that was lettable. So just bear in mind, when you're buying a buy-to-let house and you're looking to put it on the housing market, there inevitably are going to be costs that get found in between completing and putting a tenant in there that need to be met. I personally would budget between like £500 and £1,000 for that, because it's been similar with my other properties over the years. So let's have a bit of a discussion about the tenants. So my agent, I think they must have interviewed at least 10 people. I mean, they went in on the marketing of this property and they did really well. One thing I liked about what they did is that they scheduled a lot of the viewings on the same day. I think the bulk of that 10 were on the same day. So you'd have a bunch of people all looking on the same day at the same time. And it obviously drives up competition amongst the tenants, because they get the impression that, hey, look, there's a lot of competition for this. It's obviously a good flat in a good area because so many people want it. So really good stuff from the agent. Applicant 1, okay, they were looking for a 12-month tenancy. They wanted to move in ASAP. It was 2 adults and a child, no pets, non-smokers, they weren't on benefits, no adverse credit. They moved to the UK and been staying with family for the last 3 months. And both adults were working with recruitment companies and the wages were affordable for the property. That was the first tenant or tenants. Second, tenants, they were looking to start with 6 months, looking to move in January. 2 adults, 1 child, no pets, no smokers, no benefits, no adverse credit. Has been in a tenant. They were a tenant in another city for the last 5 months, employed as a registered nurse. So one of them was employed as a registered nurse, and the wages were affordable for the property. Which one are you going for, okay, in terms of those 2 tenants? Let me know in the comment section below. I want you to put on your landlord hats for a second and let me know who you would have gone with. And don't change your answer based on what I say next. I really want to know your true thoughts on that. So me personally, right, I have learned the benefit over the years of really screening your tenants well. I've had one tenant actually who turned out to be a right nightmare, and that was to do with their affordability and their time in and out of a job and falling behind with rental payments. And long story short, I had to end up going for the deposit because they just refused. They moved out and just didn't pay, and they left the house in a state as well. So bearing that in mind, and I think that should be at the forefront of every landlord's mind, you need to screen your tenants well. Yes, the agent's going to do a lot of the work for you, but also, you know, do some of the work yourself when it comes to, you know, looking at it properly and making your own mind up. So I personally went with, drum roll, applicant number 1. Why did I do that? First of all, they were looking for a tenancy of 12 months. So I don't want to be in a position where they've only been in for 6 months, and 6 months will fly by, guys. Then you have to start the whole marketing process again. And, you know, they might extend, but maybe they won't, okay? Maybe they'll move out. At least with 12 months, they're locked in for 12 months. So you have that certainty of income for 12 months. And, you know, whenever a tenant moves out, you have to pay a set of fees with that to remarket the property. On average, over the years, it's been around about £600, you know, when they're talking about like inventory costs and remarketing and renewal costs and fees. It adds up to, you know, basically a month's rent. And I'm not looking to do that, okay? So that was the first thing. They both were 2 adults with a child, which is good. Usually families tend to stay in a house for longer, especially when they have children. And what really sold them to me and what I really liked was that both adults were working. So it wasn't just one adult, as with the other tenant, they were both working. So you'd expect there to not be any, or less likely to be, affordability issues. If one falls out of work, the other one's going to foot the bill. And they moved across in the UK and staying with family for the last 3 months. So they seem pretty keen. If you've just come to the UK, you've been with your family for 3 months, you want to get out, you want to get somewhere that you can lay your roots down with, especially if you have a child, be comfortable in, and hopefully stay there for a long time. So that is the tenant that I went with. Let me know who you went for in the comments. So moving on to my other property in Sheffield. Now, Sheffield has probably been one of my most solid portfolio properties in my buy-to-let property portfolio. I've had it since 2019 and it has just been solid, right? It's like the Gary Neville of your property portfolio. It's always giving you a solid 7, sometimes an 8, but usually 7 out of 10 performance. It never dips, with the exception of one tenant. Over the years, my tenants have stayed there for long periods of time and just paid without any issues whatsoever. I negotiated £5,000 off of the price when I bought it, so that was some instant equity there. And there's never any issues, like barely had any repairs on it. Really, I mean, I want to keep, it's really been really good to me. But what's made it an even more star performer, what's moved it up from a Gary Neville to like a Cafu, okay, 9 out of 10, is that over those 5 years, the value of the property has gone up. And now I'm in a position where I can release some equity from this property, £22,000 to be exact. And this is the magic of property investing, okay? This is how you can buy additional buy-to-let properties for free, literally for free over time. You're literally just sitting back because the value of your property portfolio or properties are going up over time. You release equity, then you reinvest that money, okay? And if you want to see more about how that actually works over time, watch this video here. It's a Q&A video, and in it I talk about how, with numbers, real life numbers, how equity release works, how you remortgage, and how that money goes into your pocket tax-free, and how you can do other stuff with it. So watch that video, really helpful to understand the process, okay? So you don't have to actually save for a deposit every single time you buy a new property. This is the magic of property investing. I've said this for a while, but the hardest part of property investing is getting your first one, because you have to grind for that. You have to save, scrimp every single penny, and it takes a while, but you have to be self-disciplined, defer your gratification, all of that to get your first one. But once you've got a couple in your portfolio, and then, you know, 4 or 5 years down the line and the value starts going up, you can start to release equity, and you don't have to go through the process of saving to buy more properties. Or of course you can do other things with the money. You know, you might want to go on holiday, anything really, whatever you want to do with the money, it's your money at the end of the day. So the big caveat, guys, is that there's a big reason why I emphasize the importance of research. Always research. I'm always bringing out my spreadsheets. I'm always taking you through the process of researching areas. Why? Because it's a difference literally between having an extra 22k in your pocket 4 years later, 5 years later, from doing absolutely nothing and not. Your research is going to get you to buy in an area that's growing with great fundamentals. And if you make those kinds of decisions, if you get the right area, you're going to be able to release equity further down the line, okay? And increase your wealth and do more stuff with it. So you want to buy in areas of sustained growth or with growth potential. And of course, you're dependent on the economy and the housing market doing what it's supposed to. But the trends tell us over time, right, that the property market, well, over the last 15 years at least, and beyond, but I'm going to focus on the last 15 years, it's grown by 6% per year on average. So if that's just the average, by the way, if you're buying in an area with good fundamentals that's in line with the average UK property price growth, you will be able to do the same and release tens of thousands of pounds over time. And what am I going to do with this money? I'm going to reinvest it into more properties and grow my portfolio. And over time, it's just going to snowball. And that's how it works, guys, in practice. So let's talk now about interest rates, mortgage interest rates in the UK and what is happening. This is a really big topic as it relates to UK property investing. Interest rates, mortgage interest rates are really what's driving the housing market at the moment in terms of affordability, in terms of demand, how houses are selling, how quickly houses are selling, and you know how prices are doing. So let me give you a caveat first, okay? I'm going to make some sort of predictions and commentaries on what's happening, what I think is going to happen. But if the last 4 years have taught us anything, and I'm putting, you know, COVID in that bucket, the war in Russia, There's stuff going on in the Middle East right now. The changing of our prime ministers 3 times, the economy blowing up after Uncle Kwasi and Auntie Liz. Okay, you just don't know what's going to happen. So it just seems like the world, I don't know if you agree with me, but I don't know, the last 4 years in the world, on Earth in general, have just been mad. I don't think I've witnessed, I can't remember a period of time where just so much crazy stuff has happened in the world. But anyway, I digress, okay? But between last year and now, interest rates have done a madness. And you can see on screen right now the history of interest rates from just a year and a half ago, mid 2022, round about 1%. And in the space of a year and a half, just 18 months, we're at just over 5%, right? So there has been just absolute chaos as it relates to interest rates in the economy. Why is that? Well, it's really down to inflation. And if you remember, the inflation issue kicked off really during COVID, when supply chains were disrupted. You know, people were locked down, the traditional supply paths, there were like travel bans and all of this kind of stuff. It started then. And then, don't know if you remember, there was that fuel crisis. And then you roll forwards, you had the war in Russia and Ukraine, and our supply of gas and oil and energy from that part of the world was affected. And what that did is just put sustained pressure on prices, okay? And essentially over the last year and a half, but you know, longer than that actually, inflation has just done that. And the cost of living, you tell me, right? Tell me how much more expensive your groceries when you go to Aldi, Tesco, Sainsbury's, you know, other supermarkets are available, wherever you shop. Tell me how much more expensive your basket of groceries is now compared to 2 years ago. It's actually insane when you look at it. I come back from Sainsbury's, my local Sainsbury's, with a basket of goods, and there's probably about 5 items in there, and I'm paying £10-15. It's madness. And that's just groceries. You've also got the costs of your, you know, utilities, your gas, your electricity, etc., etc. Now, what does the Bank of England do when inflation is above their desired threshold? They increase interest rates. Why is that? It's because most people and businesses have some sort of lending in place, whether it's loans or a mortgage, credit cards, etc. The costs of repaying that go up, so you have less money in your pocket at the end of each month, and you start to bring your spending down. And the idea is that brings overall downward pressure on the price of goods and services. So that inflation, the idea is that inflation starts to come down. And we've seen it, okay, in real life in the economy, okay? Inflation has come down significantly. I think it's halved over the last 12 months, in line with these massive Bank of England base rate increases that they've put in place. So it does work, okay? That system works. It is brutal on everyday people like you and me and businesses, but it does work. And in line with that, let's have a quick look at this article from the Times Money Mentor and take a look at what's happened to mortgage rates, average 2-year and 5-year fixed rate mortgage rates since mid last year. So it's only the last 6 months. 23rd of June, the average went up to 6.19% for the average 2-year fixed and 5.83% for the average 5-year fixed. And then as you go through the year, there was slight rises in July, but as you get into really August onwards, there's like sustained drops. And at the bottom there, January of this year, we've gone from 6.19% of 5.83% down to 5.59% and 5.22%. So as I was saying, those base rate increases have worked to tackle inflation, and now the Bank of England have started to keep base rate at its current level. I think it's just over 5%. They haven't dropped it yet, but even though, this is the interesting part, even though they haven't dropped base rate yet, interest rates on mortgages and other types of lending have started to drop already. Why is that? It's because they predict that over the coming months, over the coming year, the Bank of England will start to drop base rate. So this is essentially their prediction on the direction of the economy. So that's good for us, good for me, good for you, even if you're renting, because that means your landlord's interest rates on their mortgages are going down. So maybe they'll reduce your rent, maybe. But you, at the very least, you expect them not to increase the rent further, because I know rent increases have been really hard as well in the UK, especially here in London, cities like Manchester, etc. And then lastly, guys, I wanted to show you how what we're seeing today in terms of these interest rate increases, because some of you might be, you know, Gen Zs and have no idea of what interest rates were like prior to 2008 when you kind of started to pay attention. These rates today in the long-term context aren't that high. You know, this was about average, okay, prior to 2008 when the crash happened. And as you can see on screen to my left here, prior to 2010, you know, going back to 2006 and beyond, rates were, you know, above 5%, even over 6% at times. That's what rates were at. Really bad English, that's what rates were at. But the key difference is that during those times in the lead up to 2008, before the global economy crashed, the UK economy and the global economy was in a boom phase. It was very prosperous, yeah? House prices were doing madness. Why is that? A big part of it was the availability of credit. People were giving away, and get this, 100 and 110% mortgages. So basically, if you're buying a property, you don't need any deposit.
Jesus Christ.
They were giving you the money. Sometimes they were giving you over and above the money. So they're giving you the money for the cost of the property plus an extra 10, 20K to do it up or go spend somewhere. It was a crazy time. And I wish I'd have gotten in on property then when I could have got 110% mortgage. Or maybe it would have been a bad idea because, you know, when the crash happened, I might have gone down along with that. But that's what was happening. Okay, people were optimistic about the economy, about their future plans, about their job prospects. Wages were, you know, doing all right. They were rising fairly steadily. So the shackles were off. Money was being chucked out of the door from banks. People were buying property, buying property, buying property. Developers started to build property, build property, build property. But eventually, of course, the bubble burst. People were borrowing money that they actually couldn't afford. And I'm giving you now kind of economic history lesson. But it's worth knowing this, okay? People borrowed money that they couldn't afford, and then when the economy started to struggle a bit and seams started to crack and people started to lose their jobs, it all fell down, okay? It all fell down. The property market went completely down the toilet, as did the global economy. And since then, what governments have done is brought in more strict measures about affordability. So now the price of the property can't be more than, I think it's 4.25 or 4.5 times your salary, okay, your annual salary, because above that, they're saying that, you know, you can't afford this. And if rates go up, as they have done over the last 18 months, you could be in trouble. You might lose your house. They don't want the whole economy, the global economy, to fall down again. So there's a lot more rules around affordability when it comes to mortgage lending. What do I think is going to happen in terms of the future and the future direction for mortgage rates? As we saw in the Times article and those other graphs that I showed you, I think mortgage rates are going to continue to come down this year. Of course, the caveat being that there's not another global random virus from a lab in the middle of China that takes a world by storm, that there's not another war, even though all of these countries are moving kind of mad at the moment, or anything else that could happen. You know, aliens land. I don't know at this stage anything could happen, but I do think rates, if none of that happens, will continue to go down. And then lastly, what is my plan for the future? I talked about this in my last big update video as well, and I've had a bit more thoughts on it. I want to scale my property business because this is a property business, what I do. You know, I invest through a limited company. I do tax returns each year. I calculate my returns on investment, all of that kind of stuff, and I run it like a business because it is a business. I want it to enable me to be able to go independent and quit my job if I choose to at some point in the future. So you have to run it like a business if that's what you want, okay? I'm a professional property investor. So I want to scale it. I want to carry on growing. I want to carry on growing my income from my property business. All of the money that I make, I reinvest it back into property because I want to grow it. So that's the why. I want to be independent. I want to be free. I want to have the option to not work at all should I choose, to be able to do other stuff, to pursue more passions, to do more community outreach stuff. And at its basis, have all of my bills and needs in life covered by property income. That's my why. How am I going to do that? scaling. I want to scale at pace and speed. By God's grace, towards the end of the year, if not next year, how am I going to do that? Partnerships, guys. I'm going to start co-investing more with people that I trust, friends, okay? Good friends that I've known, you know, since my teen days, started talking to me about wanting to do property. They see me doing this on the internet, on Instagram, on TikTok, and they can see that it works. And you'll get this too. When you start to invest in property and you start to make returns and you prove it to people, okay? It's all about social proof or real proof. As long as you're investing in good, well-researched, growing properties, people will see that and be like, well, I want to get in on that. Some people will. And my plan is to partner up, because you can combine your funds, combine the effort and work that it takes. You can afford bigger properties, okay? More ambitious properties. Do it together and grow together. So that is my plan in terms of scaling at pace, growing this property business, and really quickening my path towards independence and freedom. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit me up on Instagram or TikTok, inbox me, because I'm starting to look for viable partnerships with people that are serious and that can be good candidates to co-invest on projects with. Guys, thank you for watching. As always, guys, the support means a lot to me. Putting out more content, I'm engaging with you guys more. I'm doing Q&A videos, which seem to be going down well. So let me know any questions in the comment section below, and I make a monthly video on answering your questions, because it's all about providing value as well on this channel. Not just me talking about what I'm doing, but providing value to your questions. Guys, like and subscribe, share this video, share this channel with people that you think would benefit from it. That's how this channel grows organically, and I'll see you guys on the next one.